G'day, everyone. Welcome to round 21 of the NRL Market Watch podcast. It is an exciting time of the year and gets more exciting by the week. It's all proudly brought to you by topsport.com.au, the home of the Top Sport betting multi. The number one seed up there is Tristan Merlehan. He is along for the ride as well. He's one of the usual suspects. I think is the best description that we give them. Gerard Condon from readingtheplay.com.au is here as well. Gentlemen, welcome this week. And once again, there's some bruised pride and or egos after the lunch bets over the course of the weekend. How are you, T?
Yeah, very good, very good. I don't know. There's been a bit of controversy before we started in warm-up. And I feel like I'm warming up for the Knights, the way that there's been blame attributed to different people in this conversation over who prompted who or who twisted whose arm to partake in a lunch bet. So we might have to get the clip up to see exactly where the blame should be attributed to. But no, looking forward to it. It was a disappointing lunch bet. It's luckily, as you touched on your radio show today, the Sagittarius star sign is very confident about some positive lunch bets this week. So punters should definitely be on the top sport side of things here.
So Jimmy, you alluding to the fact that you'll probably do a couple of extra media appearances this week to deny, in hindsight, some of the things that you might have suggested today about goading other people into lunch bets?
You know what? You know what's happened? When I was doing it, I even felt, why am I putting any faith in the Dragons? We've just been talking about the fact that they'd sacked their two coaches, assistant coaches. Why am I doing that? And then the Cowboys come down there and it's not even a contest. But anyway, but I blame Tristan, yes, wholeheartedly.
Listen, it was just like bees to a honey pot. And there I sat there and it just kicked away in the second half. And neither of you two could be found for about 24 hours. But anyway, a little update on the lunch bet scores. We have Gerard out in front at +3. We have Jimmy on 0, having played 24. So Jimmy's played 24 for 12 and 12. We have Tristan on -8, played 16. But lost 12 of them. Good thing is, out of all of that, there's 1,600 that between each of us we've kicked into the kitty. And Tristan, how are we travelling there?
Yeah, well, I'm just chucking my fine in. So we've got 10,650 sitting in the kitty right as we speak. So a very, very good result.
So Jimmy's probably goading you about pulling him into that bet last week. So you might kick the 50 in for him. But
No. I pay up. It might take me a while, but I pay up eventually. Hey, just on that, so tickets selling fast for this lunch that we're having at Dick's Hotel, Friday the 9th of September. I think there is less than 30% remaining. So, and we know that there's a couple of tables to come in too. So if you do want to come along for an afternoon, James Graham, special guest, best of all, we're raising more funds for Chris Vagg and the team at Pass It On Clothing. And Gerard, it's a very, very particular week for Chris and his charity with Homelessness Week.
Yes, it is, Jimmy. And the response to the lunch has just been amazing. In 3 weeks, we've sold out 70% of the tickets. And just to let everybody know, the ticket numbers are capped. We actually have a room that we've booked to the peak. So once the numbers are gone, we actually can't add any more in. On the back of Homelessness Week. So this week is one of those weeks where it has a title to try and create greater public awareness of a particular issue. Now, there are 116,000 Australians who tonight will be without a home or somewhere to sleep and so be on the streets. And 38% of those are homeless and are under the age of 25. So if we can just, anybody out there, jump on Pass It On Clothing's Facebook or Twitter, social media feeds, go to their link, and if you can offer anything to their campaign at the moment, I think over the last couple of weeks we've seen Chris out there with a near broken foot on a couple of nights when it's pouring rain, but still there at Martin Place with Olga and the team and just doing some amazing stuff. So yes, it's a great cause to get behind.
Yeah, well said. That's right. So we are capped. We can't add any people. In fact, we won't, based on some of the reprobates and the undesirables that have already booked tickets. So I think we're in for a very good afternoon.
It was funny because I actually got a text and they were trying to find the lunch on the Eventbrite page, but they were looking for the Jimmy Smith roasting as opposed to the Market Watch lunch, because I think that's where it might be heading to. So it should be a very, very good arvo for the vast majority of our people in attendance.
Yeah, I'll be there briefly, I would suggest. Anyway, prior engagement. But no, it'll be great. Looking forward to it. So, yeah, continuing to raise funds. So how did we go last week with our collects? Beyond our lunch bets that we handed over, I think we struggled a little bit. I can't believe Joe Suwali. So Tupou gets the first try. Joe Suwali drops the ball over the line. Come on, Joe. In a pretty poor second half for the Sydney Roosters. But anyway, that's the way things crumble. If you want to listen to this on a regular basis, we encourage you to do so. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can watch us on YouTube as well. So be tuning in for that one. I think we need to talk about some of the bigger issues coming out over the course of the week before we get into the game-by-game analysis. Pat Carrigan, 4 weeks. I think lucky. Thoughts, Tristan?
Yeah, it's certainly it's one of those ones where you look at it and obviously I don't feel there was any massive intent there, but it's caused a very, very serious injury, and it's certainly a tackle that you want to see out of the game, because losing a player of the quality of Jackson Hastings for that period of time, and it was very critical in the way that game could have unfolded as well. So yeah, I agree. I think probably a little bit lucky there, and obviously then we got Nathan Cleary who again put his opponent into a very, very tricky or tough position. So, another one where there's obviously a significant penalty being handed down for that, and there's been a very firm precedent put in place for those types of incidents.
Well, I think the key talking point is the Cleary one. I think that it certainly ended up with the right number of weeks, given that he also faced a charge earlier in the season. So. But that's, he gets a freshen up. He'll be back for the semi-finals, but in the short term, Panthers now have 2 key outs.
Yeah, no Luai, no Cleary. So I want to ask you that from a premiership betting point of view, maybe a minor premiership betting. Has it had any impact on that? No Luai, no Cleary until we think first week of the semi-finals, Tristan.
Yeah, well, the minor premiership was pretty much a foregone conclusion last week, I guess, and that the premiership hasn't moved too much. We've seen the Panthers drift out to $2.10 for those reasons that Gerard touches on with the he'll get the freshen up. But yeah, the minor premiership, they're still very firm favourites. The Panthers $1.02, the Cowboys $17, and the Sharkies at 100 to 1. So the Panthers are 6 points clear with a much better for and against than the Cowboys. So basically 4 wins. If they can win 1. They probably get the minor premiership. They win 2. They definitely have it. So I still think they're going to get the minor premiership, and I think maybe it puts them in a stronger position after that freshen up. So it's just a very fortunate timing. If it had happened in 2 weeks, it could have been a whole different story.
So the other interesting one too, Tristan, is around the price of the Broncos this week. We'll get to that game very shortly. The price of the Broncos to make the top 4 and the price of the Roosters to make the top 8, because they're all interconnected.
Yeah, there's some fascinating ones, which I'll touch on that as we go through the games. But I think there's some really good bets available this weekend, and particularly if you like some of the roughies in these fixtures, because there are some games there. There's some teams, notably the Eels, notably the Bunnies, and the Broncos, that have got a draw where they're playing a host of each other. So there's going to be some significant moves, and if you are confident in one of the outside results this weekend, then maybe look at that team that you're confident in to go deeper into the season, and maybe a top 4, or for the sake of Canberra, these sort of teams, a top 8 position. So just be mindful of the different futures markets, which we'll touch on as we go through the games throughout the course of this episode. But yeah, it's a really fascinating run home.
Well, in a point in cases, we mentioned the Raiders last week, $2.80 a week ago, and by Friday was still $2.80 to make the top 8. Well, after the weekend's result of A, they winning, and B, now the Panthers having a couple of outs, and they obviously clashed this weekend, well, the Raiders are $2. So you're right, Tristan, if you can try and sift through and find where there might be a little bit of value. I personally think that the bottom of the 8 gets very, very close all the way to the final round. I do see the Raiders, as I've suggested earlier, sneaking in. I think they're also a sneaky chance of winning this weekend, which would really help their cause. And it probably then puts the Raiders, the Rabbits, and the Roosters neck and neck for who ends up 7th and 8th, I think.
That's a great first game at the new stadium, right? Round 25, The Rabbitohs up against the Roosters and they've had their measure of their last few games. the Rabbitohs. So
well, Jimmy, that's also the evening of our long lunch. So we probably should get there for the last 10 minutes.
No, I think it's the week after, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. But hey, we could start early.
Well, we might still be at Dick's a week later.
There's nothing wrong with that. All right, let's get into the games of this week because there are some absolute beauties, some vital games when it comes to the premiership itself. Let's go to Thursday night. It's a cracker. It's the Roosters hosting the Broncos at the SCG. So Lindsay Collins is out for an extended period. Confirmation from the Roosters today. Egan Butcher is suspended. Lodge starts at prop. Terrell May and Ben Thomas, new guys onto the bench. May has played earlier this year, made his debut, in fact. Carrigan, we know, is out. Kobe Hetherington, geez, defending well. He comes into the lock forward position. Selwyn Cobbo is back in after that concussion suffered in Origin 3. So Deloise Hoita goes to the reserves list. And Jake Turpin is in on the bench. Corey Pakes is out of that side. I think that's a really interesting one. Reece Kennedy into the 17. This market's bounced around a little bit, I think, Tristan.
Yeah, this one has seen a push for the Roosters. You know, they got the result last week against Manly, but, you know, against a very understrength side, they certainly weren't as comprehensive or as conclusive as what a lot of punters thought. The Broncos obviously went down to the Tigers, which on paper looks a pretty ordinary loss, but the Tigers have been up and about. I know there was so much talk about the controversy v the Cowboys, but they really stuck it to the Cowboys, and we saw how impressive they were last weekend. So it's just trying to get a line on the form of this, and this is always a very tough game. The Roosters at the moment are $1.61. The Broncos are $2.34, and the Lions $4.50. It has shifted out from $2.50. So this was one of those games where I actually, when I did my NRL ladder prediction, I did have the Roosters winning this. I'd tried not to be tricky. I tried not to put my own input in there because we know, looking at the lunch bet, how successful that is. But I just went straight off the favourites, knowing that the Roosters would be favoured in this game. And I had the Broncos losing this, but I still had them finishing in that top four. So if you are any way confident about the Broncos, you look at their run home. They've got the Knights next week. They've got the Storm at home. And I think that is going to be the linchpin in a lot of these contests, because I think the Storm are a massive chance of missing the 4, and I think they're an outside chance of missing the 8. That's a big statement. And but I think a lot of it comes down to that game. And I wouldn't be surprised, looking at the teams on paper, Broncos being favoured in that game at home against the Storm in 3 weeks' time, just looking at the side that's been wheeled out. You got them against the Eels and then the Dragons to run home. So there is a good chance of them winning a good chunk of those games. And if you think they can cause an upset against the Roosters here, then I'll be having a look at something for that top 4 betting.
And I agree with you around the Storm, Tristan. I do think that they've got the wobbles. I know they're going to get a couple of key people back this week, but they've got some issues in defence that is just not going to go away, in my opinion, against those top of table teams, and the Broncos will be one. So I'm with you. I think the Storm are sliding, and that then leaves that door open for the Broncos. And dear, oh dear, how valuable was that 2 points last week? They went in as 18-point underdogs. Expected the win. I was confident about them. I had a play at them to cover the line. I just was somewhat gobsmacked at watching the game because the Tigers, full credit, the Tigers just out-enthused them, played some very, very positive attack, really opened them up down the edges. And once the Tigers got some confidence in that first 20 minutes, just went from strength to strength. And I was expecting even more from the Broncos in response out of half time, which we didn't see. So one of those weeks where they were very flat, and I found them hard to catch in the last couple of weeks, because 2 weeks ago they went to Sydney to play the Eels on a Friday night, and I thought that travel game was a question mark for them. They came out and went whack to the Eels, so a little tricky to catch. I do think they respond well here. Big question mark about the Roosters is currently sit in 8th spot, and clearly they need to keep winning. Well, they've won 3 in a row. I just question the depth around those games. I mean, beating the Eagles last week, and it was only by 10 points in the end on an 18-point line. The week before against the Knights and the Dragons, well, you can put lines through the form lines of those two. They still do have a couple of key forwards out, because you've got Collins, Tupanua's gone for a while, Butcher's out this week, Takiako's still out. Now, Keary's a big plus, but they've also struggled winning against these teams higher than them on the table. I think the number's probably about right. I'm not as far and wide as it is. I'm with the Roosters, but a really big watch for mine on the Broncos. I actually have a hunch of them responding this week.
Yeah, interesting, because the Roosters were really poor for whatever reason. I don't know whether it was an energy thing, an execution thing. They were poor the second half against the Seagulls, and just as I thought they were going to go away with it, and they didn't. Walker and Cleary, I like left and right. I think they've found that right mix for them now. They're very lucky with Jared Warrior-Hargreaves. He's just a fine. I'm sure Jared doesn't see it that way, but just a fine and not a suspension. Still a couple of players out with Collins. That was an awkward one. But it looked like they were distracted last week, and you can't help but get distracted in all of that. So that's their challenge this week, playing at home. The Broncos, mate, I've lost faith. I have lost faith because I saw them at that game against the Eels and they did everything right. And then we know the Tigers are a limited squad, but they were panels in front of the Broncos last week. You're talking about Broncos top 4, Tristan. I have absolutely no faith in that Broncos side. And, this is the time of year that is new for them. They've got all these young players, and the absence of Carrigan for an extended period, I think, is so instrumental. I'm going to take the Roosters. I'm looking at a 1-12 game, but I'm starting to lose a bit of confidence in the Bronx for the remainder of the year.
Well, that's an important and what I think is important for anyone out there having a punt on these games, looking ahead, is looking at some, because the table's so compressed. Like, you're looking at away from the Panthers, you've got such an even competition at the moment where Cowboys are also a point clear, but then from 4th down to 9th, there's only 4 points between them. So I think there's a big chance for one or two of these sides to get on a hot run and win 4 or 5 in a row, or a team to really bottom out and lose 4 or 5 out of the last 5. And that's where you can be looking at value, depending on if you've got an opinion like that with the Bronx, like a chance for them to outside miss the 8 is not without the realms of possibility when they have got those sort of 50-50 games. So that's the thing. Just look through the draw, because it's a fascinating run home with the way all the matchups are played.
Second game, first on the Friday night, it is the Storm up against the Titans down there at Amy Park. Brandon Smith is back. Nick Meaney is out with that concussion/shoulder. Tyron Wishart takes his spot. Dave Nofaluma comes straight in for them after shifting down from the West Tigers. Grant Anderson to centre. Justin Olam, now he's a loss. He's out with COVID. So Chris Lewis on the bench, but Xavier Coates has been named. So keep an eye on that one just before the game. Titans, for them, Jaden Campbell back into the starting side. I like that. He's a real point of attack for them. Brimson to 5'8", Tanner Boyd to halfback. This is an interesting one. Toby Sexton has been rested, and Greg Marzou, new man on the bench. And look at this, Tristan, the Top Sport title. I mean, I've got it on for the entirety of the podcast. I'm so excited about them.
I think from the moment I sent you the shirt down just after Magic Round, the poor old Titans haven't registered a win. So I don't know if that's coincidental or not.
We've found the link. We've found the link.
So, yeah, the poor old Top Sport Titans, $6.75 against the Storm, who are $1.11. 16.5 is the line. It's 185 the minus, 195 the plus, and 44.5. Call me crazy. I just don't think the Storm are going that well. They only just navigated over the top of the Warriors last weekend, and yeah, the Titans are going horrible. But I certainly would be preferring to take the $6.75 or $7 as opposed to the $1.11. They should get the result, the Storm. But where I touched on about them being an outside chance to miss the 8, have a look at this run home. They've obviously got the surging Titans now, which they probably should get the 2 points. But then they've got Penrith away, they've got Brisbane away, the Roosters at home, and the Eels away. 4 tougher games. I don't know if you'll find in a row. Now, they are fortunate Penrith have got some players out, and they might be able to get some results there. But the way they're playing, I wouldn't feel confident about many of those last 4 games that they play. So they've got a really, really tough road here. They need to get some confidence back, and they need to put a number on the Titans to really ensure they're a chance of staying in that top 4 race. I just think them miss the top 4 is one of the best bets I've seen.
Yeah, well, I agree, because I think this is likely their last win of the season. I think they're in a lot of trouble after this with that difficult draw. And, getting them at $1.11 and minus 16.5 at home, I understand why the numbers are there, because it's a Storm, it's in Melbourne, and the Titans are just going so bad. But right now, their form does not justify being minus 16.5 point favourites. The Titans dear, oh dear. I thought with plus 8.5 last week that they were a fair show in that game, but they've just got so many problems in defence and their left edge in particular. I mean, 3 of their last 4 games, they've leaked 36, 36 and 38, now lost their last 9. They've got 1 win from their last 15 games, and that win was up the road at Suncorp in Brisbane. Travelling to Melbourne, way too hard. Listen, Campbell at fullback helps them because he gives them spark and he will add a little bit more attack to their game. But the Storm win, I don't like the line. I think it's their last win, but they'll get one in Melbourne.
Craig Bellamy will not believe how lucky he is with Nelson Asafa-Solomona escaping suspension. That's just a gift because he needs a gift because he's had a side that's been struggling. However, talk about how to expose weak minds, make them go down and play in Melbourne against the Melbourne Storm, and that's what I see with the Titans. There's some players in there, and we talk about them every week. Mo Whatuako and Tino Fa'asuamaleaui are standouts week in, week out. And then they really struggle beyond that. I'm not sure Tanner Boyd is a first-grade halfback. I think he's a 14. I think he probably plays his best footy at 9. I like Campbell being back, but beyond that, chopping and changing the halfback, all the noise coming out about who's going there and who's not, both on the field and off the field. They're a proud club, the Melbourne Storm. If they want to have a tilt at this competition, they've got to start now, right? So for all those tough games you've got coming up, they need to take some form and confidence into it. I reckon they get it out of this game, out of the Titans. I love them at the minus 16.5.
Ooh, would there be any interest in a little lunch wager, Jimmy?
There wouldn't be a little interest. There'd be significant interest in a lunch wager. Absolutely true. You ready?
I'm going to go down with the shit. What do they say? You throw enough darts, eventually one will lob. So I'm going to back the Titans in again, plus that start. And any asterisks on this one, or we're just going to go straight off the board odds?
Obviously, if Nelson gets sent off in the first 20 minutes, it's all bets off, right? But anyway, hey, mate, I don't know about this Top Sport sponsorship of the Titans. It's costing you a fortune just in lunch bets alone. But anyway, happy to do it, Tristan. Happy to take you on for that one. All right, let's get to this cracking game on Friday night. It's at 4 Pines Park. Okay, so they're back. Jason Saab, Christian Tuipulotu, Tolatau Kola, Hamoli Olakawatu, Tofafo Sipley. Sean Kepi is out still. Dylan Walker and Marty Tapau back to the bench after starting. Have to see what happens with Ben Trebojevic and Andrew Davey for the Eels. No Mitch Moses. Gee, that makes it really hard, I reckon, to price up this game for you, Tristan. Our hearts go out to you. Jake Arthur taking over at halfback. So that's going to be interesting from a Parramatta Eels follower as well. What's the market saying?
Yeah, this one, as you say, has been very, very tricky to price up. We initially priced it at Pickham. There's been a move for Manly into $1.82. Parramatta out to $2 and 1.5 is the line. So, the Eels, they were impressive against the Panthers. Obviously, they had the big favour in the Cleary send-off, but I felt like they had them covered anyway. They were playing a lot better up until that point. Probably the concern for a Parramatta fan is that maybe they didn't go away with it in that second half, which I think is also a testament to how, gutsy Penrith are. But, when you're playing a team one man down, you'd probably like to see you kick clear in the second half, but it wasn't to be. Manly, this is going to be intriguing how these players fit back into this side because they were so gutsy there on Thursday night last week. Is it going to be a plus having these players back? It should on paper, but we hear there's been a bit of ruckus, which, whether it's Chinese whispers or not, it's going to be a fascinating start because if they play with that intensity they played last week with all their players back at home, then they're going to be tough to toss.
Well, we saw the good Eels last week, but it was all in one half. And that's exactly the stuff that we keep talking about with the Eels, is inconsistency. I mean, you didn't need to open the doors for them to want to get out there and play. They really ripped in. And, beside the Cleary send-off, at that stage of the game, they were already very well on top. The attitude was great, lots of enthusiasm. Their ball play was smart, in particular on a couple of edge plays and some nice muscle in the middle. And they were the dominant side. Now, they should have gone on with a far stronger win in the second half, but that is them. Now, the big issue here with Moses out, that's a very major out. And of the 19 games that they've played this season, they are yet to put 2 games back-to-back more than 3 occasions. And again, we just see this roller coaster inconsistency. Now, we go back earlier in the season, we all talk about that very good win when they went to Penrith Park and won 22-20. Well, off that very good win, the following week they lost. And that's just what we get with the Eels. The Eagles, I really do think that they're going to be up for this week. They're still at Brookvale, where their record has been very good. Won 6 of their 8. They really did roll some sleeves up last week. Really impressed with the young Zach Fulton. He's going to be a player in a couple of years' time. But, you know, what a week. I think they've had more meetings and training sessions this week trying to get ready for this. They've got a point to prove. But one question mark about the Eagles is they've only won 1 on the 9 occasions that they've played a team above them on the table. I'm with the Eagles. I think they aim up. There's some risk around that. I thought the market's probably about right. I just think at Brookvale, in front of their home fans, off that last week, it's the right week.
When media and communications manager Wayne Cousins brings you a 6-pack of pale ale, you call it 4 Pines Park, okay? That's what happened last week when we were calling out there, so that's what we're going to do, all right? Easily bought, clearly. Yeah.
Only one of us got the 6-pack, Jimmy.
That's right. Yeah.
It's still Brookvale to me.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know about the Eagles. I don't, you know, it was a brave performance last week, but I thought the Roosters were right off in that second half as well. So, you know, how exactly brave was it? All of these players come in and make a difference, like all of them. Of the 5, the 6 that were out that are coming back. The question mark remains around what's the playing group like, and you know, you keep, as you say, more meetings and training sessions, and you keep hearing one thing and another. So how they play is the only thing that will be able to silence all the critics. And I know it's funny, you know, we have question marks about Mitch Moses, but as soon as he's out of this Parramatta side, I'm looking at it going, oh, gee, okay, Dylan Brown, you need to take control. Clint Gutherson, maybe you can take control. I don't think Jake Arthur has to take control, but, you know, there's going to be that section of the Parramatta faithful that want him to take control, and they'll be critical if he doesn't. So it's a really hard situation for this Eels side. They are inconsistent. The fact that it's at 4 Pines, I'm taking the Seagulls at the -1.5.
Jimmy, I also think there's points in this game, and I'm surprised the line hasn't moved upwards more than it has. The Eels have been over 15 of their 19 games so far this season. And while they win some games, they're also loose in defence. Well, the Eagles are just the same. In particular, when the Eagles are at home at Brookvale and a night game, there have been lots of points in many of those games recently. So I think well over 42.5 for mine. I think we probably see 50 and a nice loose attacking game.
I'll take the under 49.5 if you like, for a lunch bet.
Where I'm looking, Jimmy, it's 42. Did you want under 42?
Oh, well, you said well over 50, so I thought you.
I did. But if I had to bet the market, I'd be betting at the over 42.
First game on Saturday is the Rabbitohs Warriors at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. So home game for the Rabbits that they've taken on the road. Commercial imperatives associated there. Tane Milne's back from that finger injury. So he comes in for Jed Cartwright, who came in for him, who's now got a hamstring injury. Tom Burgess out suspended. Mark Nichols back in. Blake Taff is there. Cody Nikorima out. So that's an interesting one. Ewan Aiken into the back row. Adam Pompey is dropped to the reserves. Chanel Harris-Tavita out. Wade Egan goes into that number 6 jersey, and Freddie Lussick into the number 9 jersey. So there's all Aaron Penne, Bailey Sirinen, and Jack Murchie all coming back into the pack too. So Josh Curran to the bench, and Jazz Tavunga dropping out because of a shoulder injury. So he is going to be a loss. An interesting one when the Rabbitohs take it on the road, Tristan.
Yeah, and I thought their game against the Sharks was high quality. They were, you know, they'd probably be disappointed they couldn't get the result there late, and but now they obviously step back in class significantly here against the Warriors, where they're $1.12 favourites. The Warriors are $6.35, and the line is 18 flat, should I say, but shorter than minus. So the Bunnies are expected to get a result. I think they'll be too good for the Warriors. I think the Warriors, to their credit, they've really stood up in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I thought they were going to really bottom out, and they were a chance of running last, but they've been gutsy even against the Storm. They've hung in contests a lot better. You know, they're getting near the end of the season, but if they start to leak some points here against the Rabbitohs, it'll be interesting if they can continue to do that. Just just looking at the Rabbitohs draw, they've got the Warriors, they've got the Eels, the Panthers, the Cowboys, and the Roosters. So they got a really tricky one. I still feel they're the team with the biggest upside. They've got a tough draw though. If they drop a couple of games, they're a chance of obviously staying down that bottom of the 8. But I just think they're one of the top sides in the comp, and it wouldn't surprise me if they win a large number of those games and really push for a top 4 spot, which is around about that $6 or $7 mark. If you're in agreement with Jimmy on the Broncos fading, myself and Gerard with the Storm fading, and you think the Bunnies can get on a roll, I think there's a lot worse $6 or $7 shots going around than South Sydney to make the top 4, if you agree that they're a team on the up. They've got to win this game. They've got to win it comfortably if that's in the equation.
Tristan, what price are the Warriors to pick up the most losses, the spoon?
They are, to pick up the most losses, they are $9.
Okay, well, I still think that they're a fair shake at that. It's going to come down to those final 2 rounds. I don't expect that the Warriors are going to win another game to finish the season. It's then a matter of whether the Titans can pick up a couple, one of which will be against the Warriors to move themselves up. But I think that's still a little bit line ball. How good's their itinerary at the moment, the Warriors? Auckland down to Melbourne last week, back home to Auckland, now up to the Sunshine Coast this week. Listen, I think if the Rabbits are fair dinkum, given some of the changes to that list of the Warriors, it's getting weaker and weaker by the week. They've lost another 2 players this week, will be out for the rest of the season. They're moving their hooker to play number 6. And it's just, they've got Band-Aids all over trying to come up with a team. The Rabbits win. If the Rabbits are fair dinkum, then they'll cover the line. And gee, if anyone out there is playing multis over the weekend and just want to add a little bit more juice to what your all-up might be, just take Alex Johnson for 1 or 2 tries, because he'll be scoring 1 at least.
That's funny, Gerard, the Titans to win a game. But anyway, that was a good one. Hey,
what if they win 2?
Yeah, well, I think the Rabbitohs are going to win this, but I think it was like they'll miss Tom Burgess. He's a significant out. He's been excellent for them this year, I thought. Tavita Totola too, but Daniel Saluka Fafita comes in, and he's certainly not the player that Tom Burgess has been. So there's a loss. I couldn't understand the Latrell to centre bit last week.
Oh.
Like I know that Cody Nikorima is not suited to the centres and is more suited to fullback, but that doesn't mean you take your best player away from an important position. I know he's a very good left centre. I just couldn't understand it. And to me, everything with the set, like you see the upside to them, Tristan. I see the upside when there's one player involved, and that player is Latrell Mitchell. So when he's not involved, which we got for long periods of time in that game last week, they just weren't the threat. And as good a player as Damien Cook is and Cam Murray are and Cody Walker is, they don't have that threat if Latrell doesn't in some way provide it, either emotionally or literally with what he's doing with his work. I would take the Warriors plus 18, but I'm not going to get involved in it because of the blanket rule that I've got. But I know those losses, but I don't see the Rabbits as the strong force that maybe you guys see, unless here's my asterisk to this one, unless it's the Latrell Mitchell show.
It's interesting, Jimmy. There are plenty of pros out there who like to tell you that they personally don't read a lot into head-to-head stats and ground stats. It's something I've looked at long and hard for the last 20 years. And the Rabbits, the last 7 times they've gone to Shark Park, the last 8 times they've gone to Shark Park, they've lost 7. And these things just bob up. And for mine, the difference between them winning and losing last week was that positional change.
Yeah, and I don't think we got adequate explanation around that. Not that we're deserving of it, but anyway, be nice to know. I'm sure the Rabbits fans would like to know as well. This is a cracker. This is Saturday. This is 5:30, and it's down at Canberra. Jordan Rapana back from suspension. Albert Hopewade drops out to 18th man. Adam Elliott has been named to play, but he did come away with a hip injury in that game against the Titans. So let's have a look at the Panthers. No Cleary, no Luai. Sean O'Sullivan goes to halfback. Jamin Salmon into that 5'8" position. Stephen Crichton is back, be wearing headgear from what we understand. Mitch Kenny back on deck. This is a really interesting game. I reckon pretty challenging to price up too, Tristan.
Very challenging to price because you've got a Canberra side which have been certainly on the up, but they've been as inconsistent as they normally are. And then Penrith, obviously, with those 2 key outs. We put it up at $1.67, 2.20, and now it's $1.60 Penrith, 2.35 Parramatta. The line's gone from 2.5 out to 3.5 and 41.5 the total points. So Crichton back in helps. Cleary out is obviously a massive loss. Rapana back in. It's a big rivalry game, these two. They played in the 91 grand final, and Canberra at home, they'll be looking to take a scalp to keep them in touching distance with the 8.
This is a ripper, isn't it? I'm really looking forward to this. I reckon the Raiders have got a big show here. I think they can cause an upset, and they get everything laid on for them the right week if they're good enough to aim up. And let's not forget, they went to Melbourne a few weeks ago, and I backed them at the start. Wasn't sure that they could win, but they love challenging themselves on these big games. And this is the right week with Cleary out, Luai out. I really think that brings the Raiders back, in particular, brings them back in attack, because Falls would normally be the slot in. Now he's injured, so that's 3 guys that would have been playing in 6 or 7 this week that are not. Their last 4 games in Canberra, they won last year by 4 points, the year before by 1, so they've been nice and close. And the 3 prior to that, they all lost. The Raiders, as we know, beat the Storm. I thought they really aimed up, won their last 3, a key finals chance. They can still be a little bit loose in defence, and that's a little bit of a worry. But I'm with the Raiders. I think it's the right week.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I thought about this with what they do, and we sort of know what Jamin Salmon is. He's a 14, isn't he? Like, he covers a lot of positions, and now maybe he's a centre is his preferred position. I'd have put, because of Sunia Turava and how well he played for Fiji in that game, I'd have put him into the side at fullback and put Dylan Edwards at 5'8". And the reason is just because to play him in a game at 5'8", where he might have to do it at some stage down the track, and I think that might help with his development of his passing game too, because I think that's the one part of Dylan's game that is probably not up there with the other great fullbacks in the game. I'm with you though. This is a classic game for the Canberra Raiders, right? It might be a seesawing one. The Panthers might get out by 10 points, but that doesn't matter. 14 points against the Raiders. They know how to finish strong. Don't forget the 1990 grand final too, Tristan, that these two teams played in. Your old man probably told you to forget about that because the Panthers got rissoled in that one. But the Raiders plus the 3.5 at home, making that run, I really like them at that one. If the Panthers win it, it's tight. Like they're not kicking away by more than a converted try in this one.
Yeah, the 1990 grand final is a bit similar to the 2022 Titans season. Hasn't happened.
That's right.
And are you with the Raiders too, Tristan? You're not jumping in?
Oh, I like the Raiders. I think the Raiders plus. I just think it's a toss of the coin game. I think it's cracker. So, I think the line's getting out to a bit wide.
And I'm not backing the under, but I'm just not sure it gets to mid-40s here because with those 3 people out in the halves, Penrith have got some points in them, but I really think they come back to the mark here a little bit.
Good work, Jared, not backing the unders. It's a negative bet. You're cheering for the defender.
Well, if we back the overs, you want an extra 10 points of mayonnaise.
Well, now what happens? You start going to the senior review official. No try.
Yes.
which is not right. Anyway, all right, let's have a look at this one. I love they say, it's sold out already, this one. There's only 11,000 can fit in. It's the local derby. It's a bit like, remember when AFC Bournemouth were playing in the English Premier League? Their home ground seated 11,000. Imagine Liverpool and Manchester City and Manchester United playing against 11,000 people. Anyway, Sharks. No Will Kennedy, 5 to 6 weeks on the sideline. This is really, really good story. Cade Dykes. We hadn't had it for 110 years, and now we've got 2 weeks in a row. Third-generation player playing for a team. Last week it was Zach Fulton. This week it's Cade Dykes. Royce Hunt out, so that's significant. Braden Hamlin-Ueli comes into the starting side. Braden Trindle joining the bench, so that is not like for like. Interesting how Coach Fitzgibbon has done that. Anthony Griffin obviously loved what he saw last week in that capitulation against the Cowboys in the second half. He's gone with the same 17. So there you go. Might be a change an hour before the game. Cody Ramsey still out. All one-way traffic in this one, surely, Tristan.
Yeah, and just before we get onto this game, we've got Bournemouth back in the Premiership. They're actually the shortest price team to get relegated, and they still have their 11,000 stadium. So that will be interesting to monitor throughout the course of the season. But the Sharks are $1.30 in this one. The Dragons, $3.55. The line's 9.5, and we're $1.85 the plus, $1.95 the minus. So a few punters have taken the plus. Obviously, the local derby. Obviously, form a little bit goes out the window in this sense, but the Sharks have been very, very good for the last while. 41.5 the total points. So it'll be interesting if the Dragons can step up in this clash.
Oh, I don't know how it's 9.5. I mean, Tristan, if you need help trying to take some of that money, just let me know and I'll ring the bank manager. I mean, I price it far higher than that. You look at the Dragons' form, it's just horrible. I mean, through the last 4, very big losses. Last week, 34 put through them. 2 prior games that they'd lost were 54 and 32. I said last week, I thought that form line against the Eagles was really inflated and a really weak game. And they came out last week and just couldn't go with the Cowboys. I mean, where does their attack come from? They're lucky to end up getting 8 points last week, but young, talented guys in this squad that are not getting a crack. I've got no doubt that there's issues in the squad. Well, I know for a fact there is, and disharmony with Ramsey out on top of the 2 or 3 other outs. That really blunts what they've got in attack, and that's not what they need going to Shark Park against the Sharkies. I mean, it was an important game for them last week. I thought they were a little bit flat at times, and they've been better than that. But at home, their record's just outstanding. And like the Cowboys, they've got ball movement, they've got some speed, they've got some skill, and that sort of stuff that just really starts to open the Dragons up. I'm much higher. I'm with the Sharks. I'm keen on them. I thought they're one of the better players of the week.
Yeah, it's that constant pressure, isn't it, that the Sharks are really good at. And so the points may not come in that first half, but they'll come. And that's what the Dragons have done over the last few weeks, barring that Seagulls game. They've been really, really poor from that point of view. Very disappointing for all concerned there. But you understand it when you start making decisions like moving on assistant coaches during the middle of a season. You were still in the hunt for the top 8 and you did that. It's just extraordinary. And I know... Anthony Seibold made a really good point about, need to give people time to get a new job, but I couldn't understand it. How much, I can't believe you've given $1.69 Ronaldo Mulatalo to score a try. He's just going to score one, isn't he? Like the way he's been playing. Can't wait to see Kay Dykes in action. It's all Sharks for me. 9.5, not enough. Ben Hunt, again, superb. And I thought Zach Lomax last week, when he really concentrates on what he does best. He's really strong in defence. When he runs a hard line into space, that's when he plays his best football. And he chases kicks. Like, it's a really simple part of the game, but he does it better than most. And when he does that, he's highly effective. So maybe that's an opportunity for them. But beyond that, not for me. All right, let's have a look at this game up at Bundaberg. The Doggies on the road up there against the Cowboys. So same 17 that had the win against the Knights. Ray Fay Taylor-Mariner, he's in the reserves. He's got that rib cartilage injury. Interesting to see whether he comes back. Kyle Felt is out for the Cowboys. He's got a hamstring injury. Hamiso Tabuai-Fido is an obvious replacement for him. And Jake Granville, new man on the bench. I know I had thought the other way, but I was thoroughly impressed with what the Cowboys did last week, Tristan.
Yeah, me too. And, you goaded me into opposing the Cowboys last week as well. And they're $1.31 in this game against the vastly improved Bulldogs, who have just been the breath of fresh air in the last 4 to 6 weeks. It's been good to see. They're $3.50. The line's 10.5. It's already moved quite heavily towards the Cowboys. It's gone 6.5 out to 10.5. So there's been a big push for the Cowboys. And I think it's starting to get out to a point where I feel like the Bulldogs are a chance of staying inside that line, because I've been very impressed with them. The Cowboys just go to another level. Every time we think there's a chink in their armour, they find a way to improve, and I've been so impressed with them. I can't. This is, in my view, I'm really excited to watch this game, because a 10.5 line, normally you think it's a fait accompli, but I think it's going to be a beauty.
It's the first NRL game at this ground in Bundaberg, which is traditionally a cricket ground. So I suggest we're probably looking, and being in Bundaberg, bit of a hard track, and you'd expect that there's going to be points here, and I think the forecast is clear. Those early market makers who last Sunday and Monday with the look-ahead markets went up at 6.5. Somebody was missing a button when they were hitting their calculator to try and come up with some numbers here. How you'd only have 6.5 between these two, and it's a game in Bundaberg. I'm sure they were factoring something that somebody missed, the fact that it was not at Homebush, it was on the road. And it very quickly by Monday night was out to 9.5, now 10.5, still short of where I am. So if either of you two guys want to jump in for lunch here, just let me know in a moment. I'm all over it. I agree. The Bulldogs are playing very positive football, but they should have won that game by another 20 points last week. They're still very loose in defence, and that's going to, in my opinion, be the difference here. That travel, everything's going to suit them, but I just think that there's a gap from the teams that they've been playing, like the Knights and like the Titans, to all of a sudden be up against a team that's second on the table. I just thought we started to see the Cowboys getting back to something that we saw earlier in the season last week. Cotter's so important at 13. A couple of their key forwards played very well. How good and big a talent is Nanai on the right edge? And the kid's only 19. He's going to be a superstar. I'm all over the Cowboys. I thought they were one of the other better bets of the weekend, and I'm confident they win, and I think we probably see some points.
No lunch, me and you head-to-head on this one, because I agree with you. I think so. We were looking at this game beforehand, and they'd given up 26 points a lot, had the Cowboys, and their defence was a concern. Sometimes they were winning with 26 points against, and sometimes they were losing, but they kept consistently giving up the 26 points. And as soon as Reuben Cotter came back into the side, like he how is it that this one guy who, I mean, he had been on radars prior to this, but he plays one Origin game, he's superb. Then he's out. His team struggle to be defensively sound around the middle of the ruck. He comes back, he fixes it in 1 week. Like, that's some sort of player, because that's what the stats are saying. 8 points for the Dragons last week, and they were lucky to get the try. So Reuben Cotter has made a huge difference. And you're right, like Taumalolo runs out a dummy half and then gets a try assist out of that. Like, it's just incredible. And Nanai, he just confirmed himself as a Dally M Rookie of the Year winner. He was absolutely superb. It's a very simple game that they play, but there are so many points of attack from the Cowboys now. And Todd Payton made mention it in the press conference last week. Too many points of attack for the Bulldogs, who have a couple, and that's about it. I, like you, Gerard, are very keen on the minus 10.5, the Cowboys over the Bulldogs.
Would we like to? We might as well then make it interesting then, should we?
Absolutely.
Can't have the listeners going away without a couple of lunch bets. So
I am a little bit concerned about not being one out, but yes, count me in.
Mate, it could be worse. You could have Tristan with you.
There's only one way I'm going to breach his deficit, Jimmy, and that's throwing a few punches. So we're
absolutely.
And the stars say, Sagittarius, this today, it says, get involved.
Mate, 100% of shots not attempted don't go in. The great Wayne Gretzky was all over.
Jimmy, you better write that one down. Gerard and Jimmy at the minus 10.5.
Oh, yeah. I love Tristan head-to-head. It just doesn't fill you with confidence, Gerard. It really does. Fantastic. Anyway, final game of round 21. Well, this wasn't so interesting until it all started falling apart at the Newcastle Knights, which might have been a few months ago. But anyway, let's have a look at it. The Tigers up against the Knights out there at Campbelltown Stadium. James Tamu plays his 300th game. Fanua Pole gets another start in the go in the starting side. Jackson Hastings is such a loss. Tommy Freeban is going to make his NRL debut off the bench, so that's a good story for the 26-year-old. Luke Garner still out with that neck injury. Bradman Best is back, and Ari Tuala shifts out to the wing, and Simi Saisangi goes to the bench. Dave Clemmer, what on earth is going on here? Not considered due to disciplinary reasons. Jacob Saifidi into the starting side. Kurt Mann into the reserves too. Not sure whether he's going to play. I know it's got no bearing on what's going to happen with the top 8, but there's a lot of interest around this game, Tristan.
There's a lot of interest around this game, and if someone had told me that the Tigers a month ago would start $1.47 in any game without Jackson Hastings and without Brooks, you would have been very, very surprised. But that's where they are. They played well against the Broncos. They played well against the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. They're both key losses. But, yeah, the focus is entirely on Newcastle here. $2.70. 6 flat the minus, and 42.5 the total points. If the Knights aim up and who knows what you're going to get, then the 270 and 6 is probably overinflated, because I think the expectation here is they're going to combust. And if they combust, then look for your wide options, look for your 13 pluses, look for your big overs, like your over 50 plus and these sort of markets, because you just don't know what's going to happen in this game. And I think that's going to be fascinating. It'll be interesting to see how the coaching staff can somehow manage to bring this team together, because at the moment they look poles apart.
I've been saying for weeks, it's coming, and it's damn well here at that joint right now. There is a massive wedge right through the middle of the place. It's a tinderbox. All the dogs were barking and leaking this morning that Clemmer was about to be sacked today. There's been a bit of a revolt from senior players within the group back at the internal news that may have been pending. He's been very well thought of over the last couple of years, even though he's had a fallout with the coach and a few other key people on the coaching staff. And quite a number of senior players at the club have spoken internally very strongly about the leadership that he's shown in a really tough year. So that's going to blow up. I think the coach is in big trouble. In my opinion, he's dead man walking, and he has been for many weeks. I think they were going to try and give him a chance next year. I think it's now a bridge too far. And you're right, Tristan. You look at that Knight side. I mean, we've got Ponga and Fitzgibbon out, but we've been saying this for weeks. So you look at that list on paper and the ability and talent that we think is there, and they've got some key players back last week and this week. On paper, they should just win this, and it should have been a reverse market. They should be going to Campbelltown as a -6 favourite, not a +6 favourite. But they're an absolute mess, and who knows what sort of patchwork happens between now and 4 o'clock Sunday. The Tigers, well, wow, Hastings, Brooks, Garner, and another 3 forwards out. Hastings a big loss. And Jimmy, you were right. You hit the nail on the head about this about 3 weeks ago. The move of Hastings to 13 has been a bit of a masterstroke, because it then meant that the 6 and the 7 playing either side, and with Laurie linking in, was giving them hands and speed with the ball with direction from Hastings. And that's what got them in that game against the Cowboys, and that's what ripped them, the Broncos apart. He's just a massive out. I'm with the Tigers. Don't know what to expect. Surely they shouldn't have been favourites, but the Knights are just such a mess at the moment.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where the numbers don't do it justice to understand what the role that person is playing. So please don't think because he's wearing 13 that he's playing lock. He's defending as a lock because he's big and strong enough to defend, or was, in the middle. But really, he was playing halfback, and they had a left 5'8" and a right 5'8". And the right 5'8" was Adam Dewey, who was superb in that game against the Broncos last week. The left 5'8", Jock Madden, wasn't much further off him too. I thought he had a really good. But think about Dane Laurie had his best game. Ken Marmelaw had his best game. Stafford Toa played superbly out there as well. Finay Pole was excellent. Kelmy Tuolangi's going to be a loss for them next year, but there were all these good signs for the Tigers. There's no good signs for the Newcastle Knights, and it's getting worse. And, say what you like about Dave Clemmer, and there are some things in his game that you might think, well, I'm not sure that helps us with the style we want to play. But what you can't question is his effort. Every week, effort. And, if he's not happy in there, if he's not understanding what's going on and what the coach and the staff are telling him, then that's a real concern. They've played like they don't understand, and I think it goes to say it's just crumbling around them, and it's really unfortunate for the people of Newcastle, who are these great rugby league fans who have got a team that they're not living up to expectation, and that's always they've had a side up there run last on occasions. They keep turning up to watch them because they knew we don't have talented players, but they try every week. They haven't got that with this side. So -6 the Tigers.
And Jimmy, it could well be argued that should Adam O'Brien end up being shown the exit in the weeks to come, is the club now in better shape than when he took over, or worse?
And you've got this guy, Kalen Ponga, who's just committed himself to the club, and You know, when you think about that tough conversation that Wayne had with him, hey, you have to do this to recognise your potential. No, I'll stay at Newcastle. So if Adam O'Brien's not there next year, what's the coach going to do with his high-profile man, Kalen Ponga, whoever the coach happens to be? That's all fascinating. Righto, mate, you better give us your tips for the round and your best bet.
Jimmy, the Roosters, the Storm, the Eagles, the Rabbits. I do think the Raiders can upset at home. The Sharks, the Cowboys, the Tigers. I thought the best of the week was the Sharks, the Miners, 9.5 at $1.90.
T?
My best of the round is that last game, actually. I think the Tigers win. I'm going to go the 13 plus because I think that line of 6 is inflated due to the fact that there's problems in Newcastle's camp. I think if that's the case, then the Tigers really get on a roll here, and I'm going to take them 13 plus.
So hang on, what sort of staking plan are you going to utilise for that, Tristan?
Just bang, 100 straight.
Bang! Wow.
As per the star signs with Sagittarius, we're going to go 100 on them at $2.81.
Apparently, that's another characteristic, decisive. So there you go. Hey, I'm in for a penny. I'm in for a pound. My best bet of the weekend is the Melbourne Storm minus 16.5 against the Top Sport Titans into Dave Nopaluma. Gets down there, gets a try. Hey, guys, look, I'm here to try really hard for you. I know I've been a little distracted up there at the West Tigers for the last 5 years, but I'm really dedicated for the next 5 weeks. So he's $1.55. We'll get that $2.40. That'll be my best. And I really love the $1.69 Ronaldo Mulatalo anytime against the St. George Illawarra Dragons. All right, G, have you got a racing tip for us?
Jimmy, I've been spending like a top this afternoon trying to sort a couple of little things out. So no, I don't. But I was going to add just another little option out there for anybody listening that's looking at multis on the weekend. I thought if you took the Eels game with some points that were high, you can pick an alternate margin with Tristan and Top Sport there. I thought that the Sharks and the Cowboys, and again, you can play some lower alternate margins. You can come up with something mid $3. That would be a nice bet for mine instead of a racing bet this week.
Okay. Was that the game you said over 50? Is that what you're recommending? Is that what you're recommending? No?
I thought it might get the 50, yes, Jimmy.
Oh, okay. All right. So there you go. Gamble responsibly. Think about your staking plan. Randwick, race 4, number 13, Conqueror. Can't see a price on it yet. Obviously, I'll get the top fluck best bet. What's that product?
Best of the best, Jimmy. Yeah, you're selling yourself short. Yeah, and even you're eligible for that product. So race 4, number 13. It's about to go up in the system. It is around about the $2.10 mark. So it is firm favourite. Willie Pike in the saddle for Chris White.
Yeah, absolutely. So 3-year-old resuming off a couple of quiet ones, but strong trials suggest it's up and about. So we'll be interested to see how that plays out.
No wonder you found it, Jimmy. You've obviously rung through earlier to see what the price might be, and they've said, yeah, it should be close to $2, and you're all in. You're going to have 20 to win and 8 at the place, or?
No, I think I'll just do a different staking plan. I'll just go all out like the Sagittarian. Just bang.
And mate, while we're talking horses, I and a few of the listeners have a little bit of a bone to pick with you. There happened to be a particular horse run last Saturday at Randwick called King's Trust, who ended up paying $4.40 for the place. And each week when the acceptance come out, you're jumping out of your skin to let everybody know that King's Trust is running around and have money out. You didn't even mention that the silks were being ironed.
I'll tell you what, I am a beneficiary on my Top Sport account of the great performance from the People's Champ, King's Trust. Didn't it finish well? Easily the quickest last 400. So well done to King's Trust on that one. Don't worry, there's another highway. I think it'll be highway number 27 in 2 weeks' time or 10 days' time. The drier track's now in Sydney as well. Back at Rose Hill, suits the People's Champ. So get all ready for that one. But yes, that win on the Top Sport account allowed me to pay my lunch bet for the poor performance for the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Yeah, so apologies for that, gentlemen, but I'm giving you early warning about the next time the People's Champ goes around.
That's good. Have you been on to PBL? He raised the prize money again today for all of the races in New South Wales. Did he raise the highway, or where did that fall? Because I think that was one Jay Smith that would have been the chief negotiator in that sense.
$9,600 for a third prize getter in the highway. That's good. That's good. That pays a few bills, not many, but a few. So we're all happy about that. Hey, I'm being serious now. We've just had an email come through. 3 more tickets gone for the lunch. So if you're thinking of getting a table, if you want to come along, do it now. We'll put it all out across the social media. Follow Jared's reading the play too. So he's got them out there as well. Gentlemen, that's it.
It's been a fun arvo, Jimmy, and looking forward. We've got a bit of action in the lunch bet, so looking forward to bridging the gap a little bit this weekend.
And some great footy in front of us, yes. And great news about the lunch.